How's it going this morning? Hope everybody is doing well today. We are coming at you live from our high school ski trip. We've had a blast the past couple days and hope you guys are enjoying your long holiday weekend. So we are going to keep looking into our More to the Story series this morning. So we hope that you will enjoy this conversation. It's definitely a harder one to talk about and something that we like to talk about everywhere else but the church, but our relationships with opposite sex is a really important thing, and God wants us to honor Him and ourselves and our bodies. So we want to talk about how we do that really well. So there are words out there that teenagers use, that you guys use, that sometimes I'm not totally sure what that means. And things that maybe are happening on TikTok that I'm a little behind the eight ball on. And I'm like, you're going to have to explain that to me. But one of those words that sometimes I hear is cringy. So when something is just slightly yuck and you're not loving it, you might say the word cringy. So I think this topic, the topic around relationships and sexuality and stuff, can feel a little cringy, especially when we talk about it in terms of the church. And I think when it comes to sex and dating relationships, sometimes adults talk about it in a really intense way. Some talk about it like in a way that it's so dangerous and bad. And then others seem to talk about it like it's not really a big deal at all. Excuse me. Some people act like it's catastrophic if you are in a sexual relationship or have chosen to do that with your body. Others act like it's totally casual and it's just kind of part of growing up and part of life. So when you talk to people who've experienced something and they tell you that it's not a big deal, the most logical thing to believe is that it's not a big deal. And we live in a world where the normal pattern of thinking is relationships outside of marriage, one night stands, just stuff we see on TV like that it's so natural for us to start believing that it's normal to just have these casual, flippant relationships. And God says that is not normal. And at the same time, I think we tell ourselves that something isn't a big deal. So you may have noticed that sometimes it kind of becomes a bigger deal when you're like, okay, this is not a big deal. This is not a big deal. And then your mom and dad are like, no, well, if you keep saying that, it actually is a big deal. So even though relationships like this, where we're having with maybe our high school boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe it's a guy that you're just like hooking up with or whatever, that even though it's not catastrophic, there are times when it doesn't seem so casual either. And so no matter how you try to treat sexuality and having sexual relationships as casual, it is not casual. It is a big deal, and it is important that you know what God says about it and what we believe the Bible teaches. So to start, you need to know that if you are feeling any shame or judgment over things that you have done in the past, there is no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone because God is the jury and judge, and we are not. We are here to love you and walk alongside you. So if you hear this and want to talk to a leader, like, we'd love to walk alongside you in that. We can all be transformed in a new way. And here's how. We can start identifying where we've been affected by a certain thought pattern. So it may not even be something we've physically done, but things that we're thinking about. And then that's when we can be transformed, as Paul says, by the renewing of our minds. So what is it that you would like to see transformed in your behavior? And a transformed mind often starts with a transformed heart. And out of that, our behaviors begin to be transformed and changed. So even if it takes a while for your thinking to begin to change, you can start living a transformed life and be a transformed person now. And your thinking will follow. And I think evidence of relationship with Jesus is a transformed life. And so God is wanting us to be transformed. And there's more to the story when it comes to our sexual relationships. So we have to live like sex is not casual, like the world tells us. We watch these shows like Grey's Anatomy or One Tree Hill or, anything on Netflix that you've been watching. Bridgerton. I don't know what all you've been watching. But it is treated so casual. Like, oh yeah, I slept with him last night and it was no big deal. And I'm going to go to work tomorrow and he's going to be there and it's going to be fine. It's like, well, there's something going on in our heart and pain that we can end up experiencing that's really hard. So I want to look at something that Paul says in a letter to a group of Christians in Rome. And so when people started following Jesus, there was this tension between what was normal at the time and the life that Jesus was inviting them into. It was different. Chances are that they felt some confusion over what the real story was and who they should believe. Romans 12:2 talks a lot about that. And so Paul begins talking to the people in Rome about how their lives were going to be transformed. And he says that there's a certain way the people around you live. There's a pattern of this world that we are supposed to follow. But that doesn't mean you should conform to it. But be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Romans 12:2. So God isn't just asking you to believe something about him or about the world. He's asking you to actually live differently. So in terms of this sexual culture that we live in, what are some of the normal behaviors or patterns of this world? This casual sex is just a normal pattern. And is definitely something we're taught over and over in the messages we keep getting on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, things that may be asked of you on those platforms that are not patterns that God would want, but they are patterns of this world. And so in this passage, Paul obviously isn't talking about sex or dating here. But that doesn't mean his advice does not apply to sex and dating. He tells us to love and care about each other sincerely in Romans 12:9 and 10. That's a different message than we're hearing from the culture of casual sex. God is calling us to be the kind of people who understand that how we treat one another, how we care for another human being is never casual. It always has an impact. It always means something, no matter how casually we act about it. How we talk to others, how we treat them, the way we might belittle somebody or things about our bodies, those are not casual things. And even though we might say them flippantly, they're really real and important and things that God wants us to say with a strong voice and heart and speak out in love towards. So God, who invented sex, he's the creator of, he's the designer of this. And it was meant to be this good, amazing thing, to be significant and to matter. But we're getting mixed messages that tell us something totally different, that it doesn't really matter and it's not a big deal. But God's saying this is the biggest deal. This is what I created you for. And it's being distorted when it happens outside of marriage. So this is an invitation for us to transform our minds, to think differently, and to refuse to conform to a way of thinking just because that's how everyone else thinks. So just because the world says this is okay doesn't mean it's okay. Look, I get that this is a complicated topic. I get that it's uncomfortable to talk about. There are plenty of competing messages about what's okay, what's not, how you should live. That's why I think having leaders in your life that can walk alongside you, that if you make a mistake, or if you're wondering what something is about, or hear something at school that you're not sure you understand, or have a voice text you something and you don't know what to do with it, like, talk to your leader about it, because this is the way the world wants us to respond to these things is not how God wants us to respond. So your leaders know that this isn't casual, and your friends at church probably know that too. So it can be treated in a different way, and we want to walk alongside you as you figure out what matters for you now and in the future. And things that happen now in terms of your sexuality will affect your future, and conversations you're going to have with your spouse one day. And so we invite you to be transformed by the renewing of your minds, and not conform to the pattern of this world. So we hope that you've enjoyed this conversation, and please reach out to us if you have any questions or need to talk about anything. We love you guys. See you soon.